Want to know why we Australians are feeling poorer and our economy weaker? Well, the latest instalment of Albonomics, spruiked by the Treasurer, provides a hint. He's claiming Labor's plan to increase the cost of electricity is going to drive higher economic growth. The Treasurer is not disagreeing with the recent analysis of Frontier Economics, which shows the Coalition's plan for a balanced energy mix of renewables, nuclear and gas as being far cheaper than Labor's renewables-only scheme. Instead, he's prosecuting the bizarre argument that Labor's plan for higher electricity costs will somehow be good for economic growth. This is the same government which promised a $275 reduction in household power bills, but drove bills up to $1,000 higher than what they promised. The same government which has delivered Australia's lowest economic growth in over 30 years. And now Labor's big plan for the future is higher electricity costs because apparently that's good for economic growth. On what flawed logic can they even make this claim? Well, let me explain. For the Coalition's energy plan, we accepted the market operator's progressive forecast of a 60% increase in electricity consumption by 2050. That's coming off a relatively flat consumption base over the last decade or so. In contrast, Labor wants a step change in electricity consumption that is far higher, which has led the Treasurer to naively conclude that overbuilding the electricity grid, despite it costing 44% more than the Coalition's plan, will translate into higher economic growth. But he clearly doesn't understand his own modelling. The biggest driver of Labor's exaggerated electricity forecast is its big bet on green hydrogen to replace gas. They believe so much green hydrogen is needed that come 2050, the equivalent of 30% of our current electricity demand will be drawn from the grid. No one believes this will happen, especially at such a high price point. The second biggest driver is Labor's plan to force people into driving electric vehicles, whether they like it or not, as they aim for 99% of all vehicle sales by 2050 being EVs. I'll let Labor explain that to the tradies, the farmers, the grey-haired nomads who may have different ideas. And the third driver is Labor's plan to electrify everything, forcing families to disconnect from gas and redo their kitchens, their bathrooms, their heating systems, paid for out of their own family budgets. As for Labor's bogus claim that it is economic growth which explains the need for higher electricity consumption, well, according to Oxford Economics, the main factor driving an increase in economic growth will be higher net migration. Australia is already struggling to house the people living here today, and our cities and roads are congested. Instead of allocating scarce capital and resources to tackle these issues, Labor is misallocating investment towards a massive overbuild of our electricity system. Because it's betting big on green hydrogen, EVs, and the electrification of everything, while increasing net migration for some economic growth. When the Treasurer released his dodgy in-house analysis, his media release at least referenced the importance of big energy users like aluminium smelters, because they won't have a future under Labor. The last thing large energy-intensive operations like smelters need is a renewables-only plan to receive part-time energy at a cost which is already among the highest in the world and is set to become more expensive as Labor overbuilds the system. There is a better way. Like other advanced economies the world over, the Coalition believes Australia deserves a balanced energy mix, renewables, nuclear and gas, to deliver cheaper, cleaner and more consistent 24/7 power. So that come 2050 and beyond, our nation is not poor but wealthy, not weak but strong.